Hello, everybody. Today is Monday, December 4th, 2023. Welcome to episode 67 of the Old Men Magic Podcast. For the next two episodes, we will be discussing clerics. If you didn't know anything about clerics in Magic the Gathering, Steve, I bet you would guess that they were white.
That would have been my guess, Alex. I would think, what other color would they be? I mean, I think cleric, I think holy man or woman. I think man or woman of God. I think white.
Yeah, well, you would be partially correct because a lot of them are white. However, many clerics are black too. There are a good amount of clerics, so today we will begin by discussing the more traditional white, holy, nurturing clerics, and next week we will be discussing the evil, devious clerics of darkness. Before we begin, any updates? I don't think we have any.
I got no follow-ups. I got no updates. I got no follow-ups from previous episodes.
Okay. Then we will move on to the clerics. One thing I wanted to say that I learned here is that clerics are the primary spellcasters for the color white. Apparently, MTG has assigned a primary spellcaster for each color. Clerics for white, druids for green, shaman for red, warlocks for black, and wizards for blue.
When you said that, I was going to be like, okay, druids, wizards. Those are the two popped into my head. I didn't think of shaman, but now as soon as you said it, I was like, of course.
I thought of shaman, but I wasn't sure, and warlock, I didn't.
Warlock, I wonder when that started happening, because I don't even know of a warlock.
This actually says warlock was introduced in Throne of Eldraine and fully implemented in Strixhaven School of Mages.
We haven't made it that far yet.
No. Yeah. I thought that was an interesting piece of magic characterization and classification. We've also discussed briefly before how clerics are part of the party. I know you don't remember what the party is.
I was just going to say, I don't remember. I have no memory of that.
It's not particularly important, but it's a sort of fantasy or D&D themed mechanic where you can get an effect by having creatures of different classes like cleric, warrior, rogue down on the battlefield at the same time. Also, some clerics have been created by errata. I believe you're going to tell us about a few of those later. But mostly we're going to be focusing on pre-modern clerics. Yeah, like I said, and a few older cards too.
Old frame clerics.
Old frame, yes. So the clerics. But first, the land. There is one relevant land here to the clerics, I think, unless other people know of more. And that is Starlit Sanctum. Starlit Sanctum is the cleric land.
Starlit Sanctum. We talked about Starlit Sanctum on a previous episode. I kind of remember it, I think, from some sort of life gain combination.
Okay.
That is what I remember it from. A life gain combination with another card that is probably also a cleric. Okay. That we will probably talk about today.
Yes, I believe we will. So Starlit Sanctum can tap for a colorless, or you can tap it with a white and sacrifice a cleric to gain life equal to that cleric's toughness, or you can tap it with a black mana to sacrifice a cleric. Target player loses life equal to that cleric's power. So you can use it for white or black cleric decks or multicolored, and you can use it to gain life or ping your opponent by sacrificing your clerics. Yeah, like I said, this is the cleric land. This is partially because it's good and works with both colors, and partially because I think it's the only pre-modern cleric-related land. It's the only one that I could find, really.
The only one I know of also.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think this is great. It has a high rating. It's versatile and effective. The only thing I can see looking at some decks, it looks like some, people don't necessarily run a lot of them. A lot of decks have like one. I've seen a couple decks that had 3 of them in them, but I think that's maybe for a specific type of build, maybe like you said with life gain or something else. Yeah, usually it seems like a smallish number of Starlit Sanctums that people are using.
The black effect seems really good. I mean, the white effect, I think we've seen the life gain decks. We've seen the crazy combo decks. They can gain a ton of life using Starlit Sanctum and some other cards that I cannot remember at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But the black effect itself, I mean, that seems just really good. Just with no trickery involved, no combination involved. It just seems like a great way to end the game one or two turns sooner. If you have, once you bring your Starlit Sanctum out, if you already have your board state somewhat established, you already have a couple clerics out. It's just something that speeds up the end of the game.
Yeah, definitely like a nice finisher potential. If you can't get your attackers through or something. Also, with we're getting ahead of ourselves now talking about black clerics, but with Cabal Archon, which has a similar effect. Now you can be doing the same thing multiple times, maybe.
That is true.
All right. So yeah, that's the land. On to the white clerics. The first one I was going to mention, kind of just to get it out of the way, I think, is Academy Rector. Academy Rector's famous reserve list card. I think this is probably the most expensive cleric, unless you know of another one or an old card that got turned into a cleric.
Coming back, it's coming back down to its pre-pandemic price.
Boy,
it's currently available for under its 2018 price.
I was not excited about potentially having to pay like $90 a piece for these.
No, you don't.
So, yeah, hopefully keeps coming down a little bit so I can pick some up.
I would like it for $5. That would be awesome.
Yeah. Academy Rector from Urza's Destiny. 3 colorless, 1 white, 1/2 cleric. When Academy Rector is put into a graveyard from play, you may remove Academy Rector from the game. If you do, search your library for an enchantment card and put that card into play, then shuffle your library. Obviously super good. Has a price tag to match, and probably just like the most powerful cleric that can go into other decks. I think with this card, I'm not seeing people put it in a lot of Premodern Cleric decks. It looks like sometimes they put one in, but I think it's probably just mostly used in other types of decks. Enchantment decks, sacrifice decks, things like that.
Combo decks that need a powerful enchantment and need multiple ways to get that enchantment.
Ways to get it out, yeah. Was looking for the discussion on this. People talk about using with Cabal Therapy. They talk about using Pernicious Deed. I mean, there's just a ton of things you can do with this card, I think. But
yeah,
I thought I'd mention it first just because it's like expensive and super good and famous, and also maybe just like an outlier because it's not really fitting into like some of the cleric themes that people are putting together. But I may be wrong. So if anyone knows, like if you like to run a white cleric deck with 4 Academy Rectors, tell me about it.
So not necessarily a superstar in a cleric clan focused deck, but a superstar cleric.
Just a superstar on its own, yeah. So next cleric, we've talked about this one before also, Mother of Runes. There's another really popular card.
Mom.
1 white, 1/1. Tap, and target creature you control gains protection from a color of your choice until end of turn. So she can give herself protection from a color or any of your other creatures for 1 white mana. Just like this is one of these cards that it's been hard for me when I'm brewing decks not to just try to put this into almost any white deck because it's really defensive.
I find myself doing the same thing. Any control-based deck, not even just control-based deck. I was going to say any control-based like deck that's blue-white, I usually start with like 4 Meddling Mages, 4 Mother and Runes, and then sometimes I'll start to take them out if I want to do other things with the deck. But also I find myself putting it into like more aggressive decks too that have a big aggressive red or white or red and white creatures to give it protection from a color to potentially get through blockers. I find myself doing that too. So yeah.
I don't think I've tried messing with it in like an aggressive creature deck, but I would. Also, the fact that you mentioned Meddling Mage is pertinent because I do see it crop up in some of the cleric decks I've been looking at. Sometimes people will splash in
Really?
blue kind of just for that card, I think.
It's just that good.
Yeah. The other thing about Mother of Runes, I've noticed that a lot of the cleric decks seem to like to include protection from color effects. I don't know if that's just like a result of a lot of clerics having that, like a lot of the good clerics have that on them. So, that's kind of shapes the deck, or if they just particularly like to have those, color effects because they struggle against, like red or black or something in tournament environment. I don't know. Anything else to say about Mother of Runes?
Not really. Just a great one drop. It's hard to beat as a one drop in white. What are you going to put in? I do love Savannah Lions. Other than Savannah Lions, what are you going to put in your one drop spot?
Yeah, I don't know. It's so fast and it's strong, and it synergizes with clerics. So for a clerics deck, it seems like, why not?
No brainer. and cheap. I love that.
Okay. Next cleric. Weathered Wayfarer.
This one I love, and it's getting a lot of play these days. I mean, it's always gotten a lot of play, I think, but it's getting even more play in pre-modern because some of the decks that are getting really big right now after the land tax banning. This is a land tax on a stick, so why not? Even better than a land tax on a stick, right? Because it can get any land, as far as I know.
Any land.
I ordered 2 of these the other day because, well, let me switch to the onslaught printing. I ordered 2 because, as you can see, when we first got back into Magic, these were over $10.
Wow.
And they've just been doing nothing but coming down in price. So there's plenty of light play copies online available for like $3 right now. Unfortunately, my order got canceled because the person was like, oops, sorry, we don't have any Weathered Wayfarers. We said we had 2, we lied. So now I got no Wayfarers, Alex. I gotta wait even longer. Not a big deal. I didn't have anything in particular I wanted to do with these right now. It's just an awesome card, and I feel like I should have a play set. Now seems like a good time to pick up a play set. Think it's going to get cheaper than $3?
Yeah, probably not. I mean, maybe it will, but like, if it does, what's not a lot cheaper than $3, right?
That is true. The original won't get much cheaper than $3.
And it could go back up.
It could.
Yeah, I think this is a fine pre-modern staple kind of card. You could probably work with it in lots of different kinds of decks.
Yeah.
Always good to have mana fixing and land tutoring.
Mana fixing, and yeah, so that's good in a, I mean, that makes it good in a format like pre-modern that doesn't always have the best mana base. So land fixing, you can use it to get any utility in land you might want. Let's say you have Gaia's Cradle, just Weathered Wayfarer for your Gaia's Cradle every damn game. Only downside, it's a 1/1. It's really easy to get rid of. It's going to eat up a lot of removal. People are going to see it. They're not going to want that to stick around. But so what?
Yeah, you didn't invest much in it.
Then they use their removal on your 1-drop, so then they don't have it available for your Exalted Angel that you play a little bit later in the game. Good. Sop up that removal.
Yeah, one of the comments called this Weathered Land Taxer.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Search your library for a land, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Okay, so you also get the shuffle your library effect. Play this ability only if opponent controls more lands than you. I love this card.
Yeah, and if you're doing anything with, I don't know, I can see a lot of possibilities. If you're doing things where, you're sacrificing your lands, for example, this would be great in there.
Yeah.
The one picture of this looks like Fred Flintstone.
Let me see which one. Not 9th edition.
Oh, it's a Middle Earth one. It's supposed to be
Commander, the Lord of the Rings. It's supposed to be who?
Gone, Bury, Gone. He was like a mountainy forest people that aided them like towards the end of the story when they were getting
I
ready
see.
to fight Sauron.
So MTG stocks doesn't always have like high res. They don't have the highest res pictures, so it's can't really see his face. But I mean, just the outfit alone gives me Fred Flintstone vibes. The
Yeah,
color,
it's the right colors. It's either the, like
it's the
orange,
colors. Yeah,
polka dot, some blue. Um,
you can pick this up for 99 cents.
one person says in the comments, any white EDH deck should run this. Any.
I would put it in any white. I don't have it in my my commander deck at the moment because I set myself a rule that I was only going to have green creatures in my commander deck. So I literally only have green creatures in my commander deck, even though there are some creatures, some 1-drop white and red creatures I was tempted to put in. But if I ever decide to break that rule, Weathered Wayfarer is one that might go in. I actually found a creature the other day, Alex. I was watching a Receivables episode. They were covering alliances. I was going back to that. There's an alliance card that I think is 2 colorless, 1 white, and it gives all your green creatures +1/+1. And I thought, okay, it won't benefit from that. And it won't benefit from all the other cards that I have in my deck that give green creatures +1/+1. But it might be worth running a creature with an Anthem effect for all green creatures as the only non-green creature in my deck. Just think of all the other things it can pump. It'll pump all my tokens. All the pump, Alex. There's so much pump that will happen. Anyways, it's not a cleric. This is off topic. I just got excited when I saw it.
That's okay. What card is it? Did you say it and I missed it?
I didn't, because I can't remember, but I think it might have been Juniper Order Advocate. So let's type that in.
Oh, I remember that.
Juniper Order Advocate. Look at this memory, Alex. It's like a steel trap.
Get +1/+. I have this card for sure in my box. I know this card.
Trade me because I don't have one.
Yeah, I have some for you, I'm sure.
Give me a name of some commons that you want, and I'll trade you 2 of them for 2 Juniper Order Advocates, whatever. Sure. If it's a common. It's 20 cents. How many of these did you pull out of your alliance box that you split with BJ?
Probably a couple, yeah, a couple. I don't love the casting cost.
I know it's not great. It's a 1/2. It's 3 mana, but I have a creature horde deck, and they're all green creatures. So I'm like, the potential benefit that I might reap from paying this 3 mana could be worth it. Especially mid to late game, it will be worth it.
Only you could make some sort of green knight deck with it. Because it's a knight, but I think all the knights are white.
Well, but I was just thinking, I'm like, I don't. Elvish Knights, maybe?
Yeah, like an Elvish Knight deck or something.
Anywho. Weathered Wayfarer, it's awesome.
Weathered Wayfarer, it's awesome.
Definitely worth putting in any white EDH deck. I agree with that.
Yeah. I think those were all the relevant comments, really. Someone says amazing, some kind of a mix between tide, land tax, and crop rotation. Balanced version of land tax. Not really. If it was a basic land, you could claim that. Like I just was upset. Here's the other comment I was looking for. I run this in my cycling, enchantment, and cleric decks.
Oh.
So that was interesting. Good for cycling, good for enchantment decks. All kinds of stuff.
Good for cycling, good for enchantment decks. What makes it good for an enchantment deck specifically? Why does he call that out?
I just accepted that without really thinking about it.
I'm trying to think what's happening.
It's probably nothing specific to enchantment. It's probably just he likes that in his enchantment deck, I'm guessing.
Maybe. I mean, you could also be running like enchantments like exploration or something that lets you play more than 1 land a turn.
Yeah.
That way you can play your land drop, and then you can activate Weathered Wayfarer's ability to get another land and play a second land.
I was just kind of thinking that like a lot of enchantment decks might be like white-green.
That is very true, yes. What was the other thing you said? Enchantment
cycling?
decks. Cycling. That I'm not. I guess you can go search for your cycling lands. Is there something else that I'm not getting?
Yes. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that comment.
You could cycle a lane. You could activate Weathered Wayfarer to go get another cycling land. You could cycle that land. There's too much I don't know about cycling.
Yeah, me too. I don't know the cards well enough to know. Or
Yeah.
maybe there are cards that like there are some lands with cycling that you would use those and you want to restock on lands because you're missing your land drops since you're dropping them for cycling,
Oh, that's true also, yeah.
speculation.
Yeah, that way you could cycle away a land and then still go get a land to actually play.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of what I was thinking, but I don't know. So that's Weathered Wayfarer.
Okay, so we
Next
got
card?
3 clerics so far that are just generally good and go in all sorts of decks that aren't necessarily cleric decks. They just,
Yeah.
if you're playing a white deck, a deck with white in it, these are all really good cards to include, just generally.
Now we're going to get into some that are a little more specifically cleric deck, I think. First one is Soltari Priest.
Soltari Priest.
Soltari Priest. This is one of these cards that is, I feel like there were a fair amount of cards with shadow with pretty good casting costs. And it's like, oh, this is a nice unblockable shadow creature. Soltari Priest is white for 2/1 protection from red shadow. So I think that's pretty good, value.
I've been very open on this podcast about my feelings for 2/2s for 2 with a special ability. Now, this is not a 2/2 for 2 with a special ability. It's a 2/1 for 2 with a special ability. But it's special. It has 2 special abilities. And one of its special ability includes Pro Red.
Yeah. Which is pretty useful.
Makes it immune to a lot of removal spells that you're going to be facing. So I like this guy a lot, and I've wanted to play around a lot more with Shadow in general and the Soltari Shadow creatures in particular. Just haven't gotten around to it. I do have a Shadow deck built that you have not faced yet. I've goldfished it. It's fucking terrible, but it might still like win 1 out of 5 games against another terrible deck potentially. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's just, it doesn't do much. All I did is I just scryfalled Shadow and blue and black, and then I just ended up with a deck full of like two power creatures. So all I do is I play out a lot of 2 power creatures.
Yeah. Well, but they're unblockable.
It's going to lose to a lot of stuff. Yeah, they're unblockable. So it goes really well, actually, if nobody ever has any removal. Then it goes really well. It also goes really well if nobody ever like comes back at me with a 4 or 5 power creature after I turn my 2 power creatures sideways.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just my starting point. But there is a good base there, I think, to play around with unblockability. Shadow.
I think so.
Shadow and hatred especially too. Haven't done it in white though. So that's a Soltari Priest. Just in general, a good aggro creature.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say about it. It's a nice little bit of an aggressive creature for a white deck. Again, a lot of these cards have protection from a color, so I'm sure you'll be, sideboarding them in and out depending on which decks you're playing. You have some different versions of protection clerics, and it's kind of up to you which one you start off with, I guess. But this seems like a pretty good candidate to be like the main starter in the deck.
I love them.
Soltari Monk is the same card, but it's protection from black instead. So you have that as an option.
What is Soltari Monk? Is this also considered a cleric? I'm wondering. Yes, summon cleric. Pro black. Okay, so you got a pro black, you got a pro red.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, Tempest.
I'll actually skip down a little bit since we're just talking about these, and we can talk about Devoted Caretaker next.
Devoted Caretaker.
Devoted Caretaker.
You say that name, and I'm imagining the art, and I'm thinking this was when we first got back into Magic, got into pre-modern. There were 2 white creatures in particular that I saw for the first time. I was like, I love these. One was Weathered Wayfarer. The other was Devoted Caretaker.
Oh, really?
And I can't remember what it does, though. I'm imagining the art. Target 1 white, 1/2. cleric, 1 white tap, target permanent you control gains protection from instant spells and from sorcery spells until end of turn. Okay. I want to use my devoted caretaker to protect my weathered wayfarer, so I go get extra lands every turn.
Yeah. Or, I mean, target permanent, you know. You can protect your lands with this, you can protect your artifacts, whatever.
Yeah.
It's not just a creature.
That
So
is
that
true.
was one thing I noticed about it. I had that down farther on the list initially because I didn't see it in like as many decks. It doesn't seem to be as high on the list. But since we're just talking about protection from colors, I thought I'd bring this up. I still think it's good.
It is. Was $10 coming down in price.
It was
Come
$10.
back down. Come back down, baby.
It is
Get
only
down to $1.
Odyssey, which I guess partially explains that.
Yeah.
Rating of 4.07 on Gatherer.
It's a cool card. I don't know how much play it gets. But yeah, it would be tempting just to put this into any deck. A combo decks just to protect stuff. But you know, I guess when you're running a combo deck, some kind of deck where you have a card or two that you don't want to eat removal for a turn or two, I think probably the best strategy to go with, and what most people probably do, is just to run all sorts of counters behind it to protect the stuff.
Because then now you have another piece to your combo.
Yeah.
It relies on getting this guy down to protect for you.
But it's really cool art and a really interesting ability. Because like you pointed out, it's not just protecting creatures, any permanent from instants and sorceries.
Yeah, and protection from color is probably, I don't know if this is right before I say it. maybe I should think about it more carefully, but I think protection from color is probably more relevant on creatures, whereas other non-creature permanents, giving them protection from instants and sorceries is probably
I think so too. Yeah,
that makes sense. Okay.
That would be my initial thought. I mean, let's just pretend like you want to protect a land. Okay, this can protect it from thermokarst, from sinkhole, from stone rain. You know, pick a color. From Armageddon.
Yeah, anything but an ability, so like not a wasteland.
If you want to protect an enchantment, this protects it from tranquility, from naturalize, from disenchant, from whatever else there might be in another color. There's not a lot of enchantment removal in black, blue, red. Am I saying something incorrect, Alex?
No, I'm just thinking now all of a sudden, because so you know how if something has protection but you cast something that doesn't target it, like a blanket effect, it can still affect it.
Oh yeah, okay. I said Armageddon earlier. Yeah.
So, but what I'm wondering is with this isn't protection from a color, it's protection from instants and sorceries. Would that make it work differently?
I don't think so. I think still. I mean, you're talking about a targeted spell versus a board wipe. Is that what are you asking? With this?
Yeah. Like would protection from sorceries give this protection from Wrath of God?
Oh, yeah. Actually, it might, because I've seen the word target there, and I'm automatically thinking, no, it doesn't protect from board wipes. The target there is referring to the permanent you want to target with devoted caretaker to protect.
Yeah.
Protection from. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't think it would help, because I think the protection from sorceries would still just only prevent it from being targeted by a sorcery.
Okay. Do you think that the targeting might be built into the protection from phrase? If it says protection from, you think that means that it gives protection from? Yeah.
We talked about the acronym before, I think. Is it DET? Yeah. Damage, enchant, block, or target is what protection gives you. It stops them being damaged, enchanted, blocked, or targeted. So, like Wrath of God doesn't target anything, and it doesn't damage anything.
So when I said Armageddon earlier, scratch that, but still, you can use it to protect your land from stone rain, from Thermokarst, from Sinkhole, from the other ones.
Yeah.
And it's really cool art.
I like it. It's the kind of thing that, like, I don't know, people maybe aren't expecting. So you get it down and they see it, and then maybe they kind of like forget that it's there or what it can do exactly.
Another white creature I would definitely like to have in just about any white EDH deck I built. I mean, it's just going to come in handy. It's going to come in handy a lot.
That's true. Next cleric is Daru Spiritualist.
Daru Spiritualist. Daru?
Daru.
I don't know.
I had to look up Daru because I've seen lots of Daru cards. They kind of all have cool artwork, and these guys have kind of like masky faces, and they're like sort of spiky and masky and stuff. So I looked it up. The name comes from the Daru Plains, which is an area. The Daru Plains sprawl across the southern edge of the Otarian continent on Dominaria. Okay. These plains are home to a culture of nomadic humans. So a lot of the Daru cards are like nomads and nomadic type people.
They are humans, though. This is a human.
I guess.
Thunk it.
The order is made up of many of these tribes folk, and it is an important force throughout the continent. It rules the plains as the de facto government. Though they are wanderers, the Daru nomads have built a fortification in the area as a power center where the highest officer resides. Their clerics fashion robes and armor from the long grass of the Daru plains. So they have grass armor.
And look at that, Alex.
He's like a wicker man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would not have thought this was a human.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure. Yeah, because they all have kind of like face covering armor and stuff. I wasn't sure what they were, but I looked that up. Anyways, Daru Spiritualist is 1 white, 1 colorless, 1/1. Whenever a cleric you control becomes the target of a spell or ability, it gets +0/+2 until end of turn.
Okay.
So straightforward, pumps your clerics. It's good with Starlit Sanctum. Anytime you sacrifice something with that, you'll pump all your other clerics. If you're doing any kind of like combat trick spells for your clerics.
Let's go back to that again. Remind me. Starlit.
Okay. So Starlit Sanctum would target the cleric that you're sacrificing.
I remember the black effect where you could sacrifice it to have your target player lose life equal to the cleric's toughness. Okay. Sacrifice a cleric, you gain life equal to the cleric's toughness. Okay.
And then all your other clerics would get +0/+2 since you targeted a cleric. Yeah. So yeah, works with anything that targets, your creatures from your side or from the enemy side.
A lot of the clerics are 1/1. So I don't like that they're still going to be boltable, but they're no longer shockable. That's good.
Oh, sorry. I misunderstood that. I read that wrong. Okay. Starlit Sanctum wouldn't have an effect here because that cleric would die. It doesn't help other clerics. It helps the one that gets targeted.
Okay.
My bad.
With that being said, when you have a Daru Spiritualist out, your 1/1 clerics are no longer shockable. They're no longer pyroclasmable.
Yeah.
They're no longer engineered plagueable. There you go. A nice little common utility cleric from Scourge.
Yeah.
Buffs your clerics.
Okay, next guy, Monk Realist.
The core of any good clan deck is a buff effects, in my opinion. But that's because I'm a simple man. I just like giving things pluses.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's like, it just goes back to kind of one of the first things you learn in Magic, I guess, is that you can build certain decks where you pump creatures up. You can use enchantments and effects and I don't know, like I just like that because things like Bad Moon, things like Crusade,
yeah,
they teased us with them early on by like putting a few out there, and it was kind of like, you're like expecting more to keep getting invented. So
Monk Realist, I like this guy.
Yeah, he's 1 white, 1 colorless, 1/1. When Monk Realist comes into play, destroy target enchantment.
Okay.
So I saw a lot of the decks running this.
Yeah.
Seems fairly popular.
Let me
I mean,
compare him to something real quick. Druid Lyrist. Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. Druid
oh,
Lyrist, it's just one drop, but then you have to pay a green and you have to tap it to destroy the enchantment.
you have to wait
Monk
till next turn.
Yeah, Monk Realist, it's 2 mana, but the moment he comes into play, enchantment's gone.
Yeah.
It's the casting cost of a disenchant, and you have a 1/1 creature. Now you can't play it at instant speed, but I like this guy.
No artifact removal, but
Yes,
still pretty good. I think it's pretty good. And you can, you can mess around with your sideboard if you have this in and your opponent's not playing a lot of enchantments. Just, replace them with something else.
Good utility cleric.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot to say about that. It's pretty obvious. Another one, Disciple of Grace.
One of the disciples. I
One of
believe
the
there's a
disciples, yeah.
disciple cycle, right?
Yes. We can talk about the black one next time. It's very similar to this, though.
This one looks like a Daru.
Yeah. 1 white, 1 colorless, 1/2, protection from black, cycling 2 colorless.
Okay.
So nice to, if you want something for cycling in with your clerics.
I feel like when we talked about the fluctuator decks, there were some fluctuator builds that we saw that ran disciples. I kind of remember disciple cards in some of those decks.
Oh, okay. I mean, I guess it makes sense with the fluctuator deck.
Yeah.
I saw the black one first before this, and I started messing with that because I made a black cleric deck. I haven't made a white one yet. But they do the same thing.
I think I'd rather go with like a Sultari for 2 mana.
Yeah,
I prefer the protection in the shadow as opposed to the protection in the cycling. But I have I honestly I've only ever cycled 1 card. When we did our playing back in the day, cycling didn't exist. We've now gotten back into it. We're learning about cycling cards in the pre-modern era. I've only actually played with Gem Palm Incinerator. It's the only card I've ever cycled. I haven't messed around with building decks that have like creatures that are decent for their casting cost, but then also give you the ability to cycle it out.
What I'm not sure of yet with cycling is like I'm tempted to sort of throw this in if I feel like I'm light on card draw or something in the deck, then I'll maybe be like, oh, I can play something with cycling to help me with that. But I don't know if that's a good idea. I don't know if like you should only be playing the cycling cards like when there's a stronger cycling theme in your deck. You know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying. That's exactly what I'm thinking too. Like, I don't see people do that very often.
Yeah. Okay.
I see people run cycling cards. 1, if they have a cycling focused deck. 2, if it's something like Gem Palm Incinerator that has like an awesome effect if you cycle it. Or 3, I see things like Krosan Tusker, which are not usually put in decks to like necessarily. I want to pull up Krosan Tusker real quick. And I'm not even sure if I understand why people play Krosan Tusker when they do. But when I look at Krosan Tusker, it's 5 colorless, 2 green, 6/5 cycling beast. Oh, okay. That's this is something important. It's a land cycler too. So when you cycle them, it has another ability, which is a pretty good ability. Search for a basic land card, reveal that card, put it into your hand. So it can be a mana fixer. It can be used early on to make sure you hit early land drops.
Yeah.
In addition to
Then you can
that,
play it from your graveyard later on.
What'd you say?
I said, and then you can play it from your graveyard later on, with another card to help, like not by itself, like if it's in a deck where you can do that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Or, like, let's say you don't pull it until late in the game, you're playing green, you might late in the game have 7 mana available. You could always, if you just don't end up with this in your hand earlier in the game to help fix your mana or whatever, you could always, if you needed to, just cast it, hard cast it, and you have a 6/5.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Something like the Disciples don't have as much of that like bigger upside potential
They
like
don't,
with a
yeah.
hard cast later on. They're more like if you're gonna hard cast it, you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it early.
Early.
Yeah.
So yeah, Krosan Tusker, this fits in. This actually hits like 2 of the categories of cycling cards that I've seen. It's built into one. One is that it's a land cycler, so it can help search. You can search for basic lands, help fix your mana. 2, it has this benefit that if you pull it late in the game, yes, it's a lot of mana to hard cast, but it's a huge body.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Disciple of Grace is like the opposite. It's like, okay, if I have this in my hand at the very beginning of the game, I have a low casting cost creature with protection that I could play on curve. If you pull it
And
later
if
in the
not playing
game,
black, then I can just cycle it to get a card if I don't need the prop black.
or if you pull it later in the game, usually if you're on turn 6 or something, you don't want to be pulling one of your 1 or 2 drops, but it happens sometimes. That's the way the game works out. Sometimes you pull an early game card late game. In those cases, you could just cycle it away to draw something.
Yeah.
I have thought about incorporating more cycling cards into my deck like that. Cards that are meant to be played early game, but if I don't pull them early game, I just cycle them away, get something later. But I haven't messed around with that effect. Or I haven't messed around with, I haven't explored that style of deck building. Yeah. And I don't know that it would actually be very good. I'm not sure. Anyways, that was a bit of a rambling, but you understand what I was saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think I'm kind of with you. I'm kind of in the same position. I'm like tempted to mess with that a little bit, but think it might be a little bit weak on its own, just as
I do too. Yeah.
Not just this card, but like you said, creatures like this where you're, it's kind of a low drop, but you can cycle it later if you don't want the creature anymore.
Yeah. Because you can cycle it to replace it, but you still got to pay the 2 mana.
Yeah. It'd be nice if the cycling cost was a little lower, maybe.
If you have Fluctuator out. But you're not going to put Fluctuator into your cleric deck so you can cycle away your Disciple of Grace for free. That'd be stupid.
You get laughed out of the card store.
Anyways.
All right. Here's another cleric. Master Apothecary.
I have no knowledge of this card, I don't think, unless I see it and I'm like, oh, I've seen this art. Master Apothecary. Master Apothec. Okay, it was just taking a while. I was like, did I spell that correctly? There's a card from Odyssey. Scryfall's slowing down on me, man.
Yeah.
Don't recognize it. Don't recognize it at all.
This one's a white for a 2/2. Tap an untapped cleric you control. Prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to target creature or player this turn.
Okay. I'm underwhelmed.
Yeah, I'm underwhelmed too by this one. For starters, you're only going to play it in like a straight white deck probably because it's 3 white.
Yeah.
It is nice that you can tap any of your clerics to do that, but when we look at the next card and 1 or 2 of the other ones, I think you have other options for this sort of effect. Like if we look at Shaman and Core.
Is this maybe if the answer is yes, we can not explore this any further, and you can just tell me to wait. The answer could be that neither one of us really know. Is there anything that generates like cleric tokens?
Oh, that I don't know.
In the absence of like a cleric token generator, I don't want to be tapping my cleric to prevent 2 damage. Especially like, look at all the clerics we talked about so far. How many of them had an awesome ability, but you had to tap the cleric?
You don't want to tap her to prevent 2 damage. You can tap her to, give protection.
Withered Wayfarer, Devoted Caretaker. I mean, you don't want to be tapping these things to prevent 2 damage.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm infuriated by this card. I'm getting upset looking. Did you say the next one? True Believer?
Yeah. Shaman
Okay.
and Core.
Oh, Shaman and Core. Shaman and Core. This is the cleric that originally led us to the life decks, which we still need to discuss on a future episode.
I think this card's really good.
Yeah.
It's 1 white, 1 colorless, 1/2. You can spend 0 to redirect 1 damage from it to a different creature you control. Or you can spend 1 white, 1 colorless to redirect to it all damage from any one creature that has been dealt to any one creature from any one source. A little confusing. But she has 2 ways to shuffle damage around.
Yeah.
Is the bottom line.
This can make all sorts of things tricky.
Yeah.
It can make combat tricky if your opponent's really not properly evaluating the entire board. It can make it tricky for your opponents to kill your creatures with direct damage spells if they're not properly evaluating the board state, how much mana you have open, how many different cards you can distribute the damage across. It's also, like I mentioned, the linchpin of the life gain deck, and I can't remember how that life gain deck works, which is why we need to get into it at some point and do a whole episode on it. And when we do a whole episode on it and talk about all the cards in the deck and how they all work together, I will eventually remember how this works to generate a ton of life. Do you have a vague memory of that?
I don't know.
Okay. You know what I'm talking about, though. We talked about Shaman and Core. I think Starlit Sanctum was involved too. And there was another thing.
I mean, I think I remember this happening, but I don't remember.
I just remember. I think it was Daru Spiritualist.
Well, someone in here in the comments says I run this with Uber. I run this with Daru Spiritualist, which totally makes sense because you can keep targeting and adding the +0, +2.
To Daru Spiritualist, right?
Say what?
Daru Spiritualist would get +2, +2, right?
Whichever cleric you target gets targeted, it would get +0, +2.
Yeah, that's okay. That's true. It could be any.
So multiple things could be getting pumped with your.
So they get +0, +2.
Yeah.
And then you sacrifice that cleric, and you gain life equal to the cleric's toughness.
You get a whole bunch of +0, +2s on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Make it big and fat. So Starlit Sanctum, Daru Spiritualist, Shaman and Core. That's a very specific type of life gain focused cleric deck you could build.
I'm trying to think, what was the Envec? Was it Cleric Envec?
Shaman Envec sounds familiar to me.
I shouldn't go down this path because this card's confusing, and then we're
okay. Don't.
Okay.
It's too late. It's late at night. We need to do a straightforward episode on clerics with straightforward abilities. Shaman and Core
Envec is a human cleric, and Oracle Envec is a human wizard. There we go.
Oh, Oracle Envec. Yeah, I don't want to get into that right now.
Yeah, but
it's not a cleric, anyways.
Clergy Envec, by the way, is tapped to prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to any target this turn. There's a lot of clerics that do that sort of thing.
It is a cleric. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, weak.
Yeah. And I think, some of them are better than this. So forget we mentioned it.
Shaman and Core. A really badass cleric that can be the linchpin of a crazy life gain deck, but it can also just be slotted into a general cleric deck and cause all sorts of potential difficulties for your opponent if they're not really paying attention to the board state.
Yeah, they have to do a lot of alternate math if this is down.
And I hate that.
Yeah.
You could put this into the category of cards that make your opponent think.
Yeah.
I like to try to play cards that make my opponent make decisions, make my opponent think, because I know how much I hate thinking during a game of Magic. It's hard sometimes.
Yes.
Especially when the adrenaline's pumping, you're like, oh my God, I can't lose this game of Magic the Gathering, this children's cardboard game.
You're
Stressing me
paralyzed. You
out.
can't focus.
Yeah, you freak out. Your palms get sweaty. This Shaman Encore is a sweaty palm inducing piece of cardboard.
Yeah.
At least I think it is.
And cheap too, right?
And cheap.
I think this card's only a couple cents or something.
Scryfall says $1.27 for the non-foil.
Oh, okay.
That's cheap enough. I can do that.
Cheap enough. A little pricier than I thought, but I can afford it. All right, here's an unusual one for you. You ready for another one?
Yes.
True Believer.
Is this the one that's in a triangle?
Yeah.
Is there a
triangle, the pyramid guy.
That's all I remember. Let me type it in to see what it actually does. True Believer. True Belieber. I want to pay an altarist, a well-known altarist, somebody who's really good at their job, to put Justin Bieber inside this pyramid and alter this to read True Belieber.
Oh, I see. I see what you did.
Did you not know Justin Bieber's hardcore fans are called Beliebers?
No.
Did you not know that when
maybe I heard that at some point?
Did you not know that when he visited the Anne Frank Museum, he wrote in the guest book that Anne Frank would have been a Belieber?
I do remember that.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
I don't want to be too hard on him because he might have been like, well, okay. I do want to be too hard on him. I was just gonna say I don't want to be too hard on him because he might have been like 16 when he did that. But on occasion, I think that now that I'm getting older and I'm like, oh, I see somebody young do something stupid. I'm like, oh, don't be too try to be a little bit understanding. They're young, their cortex. What is it? The prefrontal cortex or the frontal cortex? Whatever. That part of that brain, there's a part of their brain that hasn't developed yet. Don't be too hard. But then I immediately remember that I was 16 and I would never have done something that's stupid. I wasn't that stupid when I was 16. And I'm stupid. I can't even remember if it's the frontal cortex or the prefrontal cortex. You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
What does True Believer do, Alex?
True Believer, it's kind of like a Ali, not exactly this at all, but it reminds me of Ali from Cairo, or a card like that. This is a protective creature who you put down to keep you from getting blasted.
This is begging to be spectral cloaked.
Yeah, he's white 2/2. You can't be the target of spells or abilities. So you're still vulnerable to creatures, and obviously they can get rid of him and then come after you. But I saw this in a fair amount of the decks that I looked up. It seems like people like it as like a, whatever, second line of defense or first line of defense for, however they're planning on dealing with what you're doing to them.
I'm closing my eyes. I'm imagining a world in which I have my True Believer out. I have my True Believer spectral cloaked. I have a devoted caretaker out. I have a moat. And then I have three walls of swords. And then I just sit there like this.
Yeah, in your triangle.
And then I play a single millstone. And I mill my opponent just twice. And then I just wait till they run out of cards before me. And that's how I win. That's how I win the game.
All right.
Yeah, I like this card, but put this this can be added to the class of cards that I will occasionally put into decks because why not? And then eventually take out.
I want to like this, but I feel like things like this have bitten me before. So I've learned the lesson to not think, to not overestimate them.
Yeah.
But like I said, I do see this in some of these decks that I looked at.
Yeah.
And it's one of the more common cards. It's up there in the top 10 most used pre-modern clerics. white clerics.
This
No, all
this I
clerics.
want to put in sometimes. Sometimes I want to put in worship, not wonder. I kept calling it wonder over and over last episode, but it is worship. And I'll play with those cards sometimes, and then just eventually, depending on the day, my mood will shift, and I'll be like, why don't I just replace this with some other card that could kill my opponent faster instead? That's where I always end up.
Yeah. What I'd like to see, I guess, is I'd have to like reevaluate how many times I'm getting targeted by spells and abilities. You know
Not
what I
that
mean?
often, I think, probably.
Yeah, probably not. That's why I want to think about it to make sure there aren't like a couple really strong, cards that are used a lot that this would be good against.
Put it when
Like this
you
would
side.
stop duress, for example. That would be good.
That is true. You're going to get duress turn 1, though.
Yeah, true.
Sideboard this in against red decks, and then that's when you also sideboard in all your Sutaris with protection from red. So then they have nothing to do with their direct damage. I don't know.
Definitely
Got to play
great.
with it sometimes and then take it out.
Yeah, I want to play with it for a little while and pay attention to how often like I'm actually getting targeted.
Mm-hmm.
He looks happy though.
Yeah. Looks kind of unfinished.
Hmm.
No disrespect to the artist. Deadlines are tight, Okay. True Believer. I like it though. I do like it.
We're almost through the main white clerics, I think.
I was kind of negative about it, but I do like it also.
Yeah,
I like the
it's not
first
too
idea.
expensive to put down. It's only 2 mana, so like
It's only 2
it's
mana.
kind of maybe why not? Maybe just put it down, and then it's gonna have to be a target for them. They're gonna have to get rid of it before they do other stuff. It's gonna attract attention. Might be okay.
Yeah, okay. Man, it's a 2/2 for 2 with a special ability. What the hell's wrong with me? That's my wheelhouse. That's what I like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking up Longbow Archer every second of every day. And everybody I pass on the street, I carry a Longbow Archer in my wallet. I pull it out. I'm like, have you seen this card? Look, it's just a solid 2/2 for 2 with a special ability. And then they're like, I have things to do. Get away from me, sir. A True Believer, I mean, it's a really unique 2/2 for 2 with a really unique special ability.
Yeah, I mean, we were too hard on it. I just don't know because I've never played with it, but it looks like other people do, and it's cheap to cast. So
okay, True Believer.
Good job, True Believer. All right, here's another one. I thought this one was kind of interesting, and I've never seen this before. Beloved Chaplain.
Beloved Chaplain. I don't think I've ever heard the name of this card. Oh,
it looks like an old painting, like some sort of
with a giant black bear, two wolves, and then
a baboon.
Yes, I'm trying to remember what kind of primate that is.
Yeah, all the birds and beasts like him.
Protection from creatures.
He's 1 white, 1 colorless, 1/1 protection from creatures. So, kind of like a Mother of Runesy type defensive creature, I guess. Protection from creatures is kind of cool because you can still boost him with things or target him if you want. It's not like he's like protection from a color or can't be targeted or something like that. So if you're trying to boost your clerics or do things with your shaman or whatever, you could still do it. And he can block anything on the ground.
Gonna block anything that isn't a trampler, which is good. But two of the most terrible beasts in pre-modern Magic are tramplers, Phyrexian Dreadnought, and Terravor, which is the new hotness. But not everything has to be. I've said this 1,000. I feel like I say this every episode, maybe every other episode. Not everything has to be Dreadnought. It's not all about Dreadnought. Just playing kitchen table Magic. Beloved Chaplain would be kind of fun for an EDH deck. Singleton. One of many interesting clerics that do unexpected things or have unexpected abilities that you could play for 1 to 2 mana. It is a 1/1 for 2 with a special ability. I would like it more if it was a 2/2 for 2 with a special ability. But it's not. Okay.
This says use with devoted caretaker. Makes sense. Now has protection from creatures and instants and sorceries.
That's a little. You could do that. It's a lot to protect a 1/1.
It is, yeah. You would be doing something good with this guy if you're gonna. Yeah. But I mean, if he's your blocker, and then they're trying to remove it.
Yeah.
Like that's cool. It's a way to protect your good ground blocker.
I just think of tramplers.
Yeah. I thought this was neat because I wasn't, familiar with it, and I kind of thought the art was cool, but I'm not really sure I would put this into my cleric deck.
Yeah. It's not bad though. It's solid.
It's in some of the lists. It's rated as a 4 on Gatherer.
That's higher than I thought it would be, but it is solid.
Yeah. Okay. This next one is one that I'm really excited about. I mentioned it a few episodes ago when we talked about the ones cycle. I know it's not called that, but I like to call it that. And that is Doubtless One.
What is the cycle called, Alex?
Avatar cycle?
The Avatar cycle. That is correct. Doubtless One.
Doubtless One is 1 white, 3 colorless. Power and toughness equal to the number of clerics in play. And when Doubtless One deals damage, you gain that much life.
Okay. The equal to number of in play is always scary. I always want to play them because I love things that have the potential to get really big. That just excites me. But it is always scary because they could just be totally neutered by, your opponent's spell that targets multiple things. Also, in the case of clerics, when you don't have like a token generator or anything, how big is this guy going to get? How often?
I did want to get back to the token generator thing. You mentioned it towards the beginning, and I never saw one in here or like online when I was like looking around in the pre-modern clerics. I'm sure there probably are cleric token generators in modern. As far as pre-modern ones though, I didn't see any. It would be cool if there were some because like soldiers, I'd kind of like to be pumping out a bunch of little clerics to get buffed by my other cards.
But like also I'm saying, how many clerics are you going to have out? It is only 4 mana. So like it doesn't have to get that with lifelink. So it doesn't have to get that big to be like worth its casting cost.
Yeah. I feel like the casting cost is very reasonable. And it's pretty reasonable. All your other clerics are going to be pretty low casting cost, playing Mothers of Runes and things like that.
Yeah.
You get them out, they all protect each other and stuff, so it's hard for your opponents to get rid of them.
And we're looking at all these clerics now. I was just about to say, where's a cleric like with more than 2 power? This is a limitation so far I've seen of all the clerics. It's like everything's 1/1, 1/2. Small. They're tiny.
There's one called, I wasn't going to bring this up. Where'd you go? I forget what it's called now. There's one that's 4/4 first strike. And when it comes into, it's called Ancestors Chosen, but it's 5 colorless, 2 white. And he's 4/4 first strike. When it comes into play, you gain 1 life for each card in your graveyard. And I don't care about that ability at all. Really. I mean, it's kind of nice, but I'd much rather have this be lower casting cost or have some kind of, I don't know, more for cycling or some other kind of neat ability.
This is a card I would sometimes see in parfait decks.
Oh, really?
As like, and comes into play, you gain 1 life for each card in your graveyard. I think sometimes people will play with Oath of Druids too. There's too much I don't know about how to properly build and pilot an Oath of Druids deck or a parfait deck, but with Oath of Druids, you don't have to pay his casting costs, so you just cheat him into play. And Let me pull up something.
I mean, in the right deck, that could be a nice chunk of life gain.
Yeah,
Graveyard's
exactly.
nice and full.
Yeah, during each player's upkeep, if that player controls for your creatures and target
Okay.
opponent, the player may reveal cards in his or her library until he reveals a creature card. So that's what I thought. You're going
Fill
to
up
be
your
dumping.
graveyard.
You're going to be dumping cards, and then boom, you play 4/4 with first strike for
Okay.
free, and
Yeah,
you've added a
both
bunch
the
of life.
druids, it's good.
Yeah, so that's where I think it sees play.
Okay.
It also has
It
pretty
is
cool
kind
art.
of near the top of this list too. It's in the top like 10.
Cheap, 20 cents. There's a lot. There's so many good oath targets though.
Yeah,
You know,
that's true.
this is one of the cards I often see played with Oath of Druid. But yeah, a cleric that isn't just 1 or 2 power, but a cleric that you don't see as part of a cleric clan deck. You see it again
Also
slotted
turn
into
one, too, yeah, not
other
forgetting.
particular strategies.
Yeah. He looks like Iron Chef Michael Symon.
That is exactly who I've stared at him. I've been.
You're like Joe Rogan. No, it's not Joe Rogan.
I've been to this man's restaurant several times. I had pork belly.
He's like
I
pork
had-
belly.
I had the carpaccio. There was some other particular thing he did at his restaurant. What was it? What's his restaurant called? Yeah,
Lola?
Lola.
He had
He had
Lola
this-
and Lolita in Cleveland.
Yeah, he had this particular dish.
He's one or two. I don't know. Those might be closed now, and he opened a different restaurant. I don't know. It's different.
Yeah, this was a long time ago. Wasn't beef cheek pierogies. He had this particular dish that I went there for. It was unusual, and I cannot remember what it was. Did they close? You think they closed?
I think so. There might have been a fire at one of his restaurants.
Michael Symon Restaurant's Lola Bistro, located in the heart of downtown Cleveland. Okay, so maybe it looks like Lola Bistro is still there. And Angeline, I have not been to Angeline. That's his Italian restaurant. When I look at his website, michaelsymon.com, it just says Lola Bistro. It doesn't say Lola.
Yeah, that might, I don't know. Maybe he changed it, or that's the other different location or something. We're getting
Food
deep on
Network.
this tangent.
Yeah, I'm not done yet. I'm still going. Food Network still has Lola listed. Oh, but it directs you to Lola Bistro website. So maybe it was just always called Lola Bistro, and I just called it Lola. People just called it Lola because the sign says Lola. But it was always Bistro. It's a bistro. Oh. Damn it. There was a dish that I went there for, a particular dish. And it was an unusual dish. And I remember eating it and being like, this is good, but I wanted to be more excited about it. There was something in particular. But I also think maybe I didn't get the full effect because it might not have been naturally gluten-free. And they had to rework something for me.
Oh.
Because I have an allergy. It's not for it's not
Not trendy.
It's not a fad for me, people. It's my gut health. I was very sick all the time when I was younger. Nobody knew why. The doctors are like, relax. Why don't you try meditating and eat some crackers? Okay, shitheads. Crackers? That's what you tell me? You had me poisoning myself for 10 years, and then you were feeding me muscle relaxers. You sons of bitches. Anyways, I can't remember what this dish was, Alex. Ancestor Chosen does look like Michael Symon.
Shouldn't have said that.
Okay, what's next?
All right, I think we're down to like last one or two here. Glow Rider. I want to do this one real quick. I have to mention it because I see it, especially in some sideboards.
Is this a black and white card?
No.
I don't know what it is then.
Oh, I think you're thinking of Edge
Yeah, I
Rider
am.
or
Yes.
something. Blue Rider.
I love this
One white,
art.
two colorless. 2/1. Non-creature spells cost one colorless more to play.
Interesting.
So I guess if you're running like just like tons of clerics mostly
Yeah.
and not too many spells, yeah. But I see it in the
Hmm.
sideboards, I see it in the main deck too.
I don't
It
know how I
wouldn't have
feel
been
about
my
it.
first thought to put in a cleric deck.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it. I mean, it's the
But I
three
could be
mana that
persuaded too.
if it was two casting cost of two, I'd be like, I definitely want to try it out. It's just that it's three mana.
4.14 on Gatherer.
A what?
4.14.
It's higher than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
What do people say about it?
They're
Any
mentioning a
good?
fair amount of modern cards with it.
Okay.
That might be part of the reason why.
But I guess like what do you need to know about it? It's it just makes it harder for your opponent to cast spells. I felt like that would be equally as good across all formats.
Yeah. I mean,
And it
not
doesn't
just
even
your
make it
opponent, it affects you too.
well, yeah, I know. So I'm imagining I'm taking shortcuts in my brain. I'm not really saying exactly what I'm thinking. I'm not
No.
doing a good job at expressing myself, but yeah, this would be a case where you just packed full of creatures. You're a very creature cleric clan focused deck, or it could just be another. It doesn't have to be cleric creatures, but just a full on white weenie, full of creatures, even bypassing some of the instants maybe you would usually play in white weenie or enchantments you would usually play in white weenie. So you wouldn't suffer much from the downside of this. Also, in white weenie, you tend to be pretty low casting cost anyways. So even if you did have to pay 3 for your disenchant or something, not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, where was I going with that? I don't know. I'd be more likely to play it. Like maybe I'd be more into it if it was 2 casting costs, but that's not the world we live in. It's 3 casting costs. I was saying, it's just generally good regardless of formats. Like regardless of what the format is, it does what it does is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And it's generally good to make your opponent have to pay more mana for their
Yeah.
spells.
As long as you're playing around it and you're not using a
Yes.
lot of non-creature spells, it doesn't have to be in a cleric deck. It could be, something
Yes,
else.
as long as you've designed with it in mind. But it seems like too high casting cost, really. I want it to be one less casting cost. Pig ear. Did he have like a pig ear? Did he have a pig head? I think he did a pig head.
They had a pig head at Greenhouse Tavern in Cleveland. That wasn't him though, but he might have done a pig head too. It seems like the kind of thing he likes to do. He's very pork and meat oriented.
Was Greenhouse Tavern right next to Lola?
I don't
Was it
know.
down that same alley?
Yeah, I think so. It was down that little alley place.
Roasted pig head from Greenhouse Tavern. That's not what I had.
You said beef cheek pierogi. That sounds like it might like a good guess. That would have been something that
There is
Michael
a
said.
beef cheek pierogi, but I can't have the pierogi.
Hmm.
And I did say I think he might have reworked it. It might have been reworked for somebody's gluten free, but not to that extent. Not to make like a straight up gluten free pierogi. It would be more like leaving something out.
Yeah.
Lola Bistro in Cleveland closes doors. When did
Yeah, I
this
thought it was
happen?
closed. Or did it reopen? I don't know.
It might have reopened. This is not even an article. There's no information. It's just photographs. Hello, Ryder. It's at the end of the creatures, Alex. I'm looking at the
I
list.
think
Is
so.
it?
Yeah, there was one I didn't include, so I should probably mention it. And that's Soul Warden. Uh, one white, 1/1. Whenever any other creature comes into play, gain 1 life.
Mm-hmm.
So also good in a weenie deck. A lot of little creatures that you're putting out.
I've seen this run too, and
It's in the
when I've
top 10 most used on here.
when I see it, I think to myself, there's got to be something else going on, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
Uh,
Part of me just thinks that it's kind of like, you know, it's something they have to deal with, kind of like it gets annoying, so they have to like focus on it.
Put this into the category of cards I don't think I'd put in my 60 card deck, but uh, I'd be tempted to put it into just about any creature focused EDH deck I had.
Hmm.
Because it's all your opponents. Every time any of your opponents plays a creature,
Yeah.
anytime a token is generated, creature token is generated too, you're going to give
True,
one
yeah.
life. Like, not a bad one drop.
No, not bad for one drop. Yeah, it can definitely help keep you alive or annoy them so that they have to get rid of it.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
I think that's the creatures.
I'm looking at the creature card base for white clerics, and I'm finding it difficult to make creature focused cleric clan deck at this point. They're just all tiny. But
Well,
I don't know why that's bothering me, because that's the classic white weenie archetype. So what is my
Yes.
problem?
Well,
I
I
shouldn't
think
have a
what we're
problem with
seeing
that.
is we haven't seen much that boosts each other. We haven't seen any creatures that are like all other clerics get +1/+1,
Yeah.
or tap to give a target cleric +3/+3 or something. Like,
We're living.
huh?
Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you. What were you saying?
That's okay. I was just gonna say, and I don't think I've found too many just like overall cleric boosting spells either.
Yeah.
Um,
We're
or
living in a world where we're far past revised now. So this is pre-modern era. All the way up to Scourge. I mean, you have so many other clans where you have creatures that give anthem effects. We're beyond a world where your only anthem effects are Bad Moon and Crusade, where you just play out
yeah.
your 1/1s and 2/2s and play a couple crusades. Like, we need more creatures that buff too.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these are focused on like defensive abilities, protection.
And the protection's great, but it's like, okay, you're going to build your board state full of 1/1s that you can use to give protection to some other 1/1 so you can block. And eventually they're going to put out more creatures than you can block. And you're going to be getting hammered, pounded into the ground. And this is just on a pure creature focused. This is just when it comes to pure creature focused strategies. If you don't want to go just like straight up creature deck, horde deck, white weenie strategy, the cards we've seen don't have like unique enough special abilities, in my opinion, unless we put them into totally other types of decks. It's no longer a cleric deck. It's just this might be why we're seeing. This might be why we're not seeing a lot of cleric clan decks. This is,
and also why a lot of them I think are mixed black-white as opposed to just being straight up white.
Yeah.
Straight white seems to be the minority as far as like the number of cleric decks. Black white, black white, black white, black white, black white, 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 black white, black white. Kind of goes like that.
Because we have seen. I don't want to be too negative here. We have seen lots of really great clerics, but they are really great clerics that you just see in other decks that aren't necessarily cleric decks, but
they're great
one
defensively. It seems,
or they're great defensively.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's look at a couple of the spells that help them.
Let's do that.
Let's see what we got. Let's start like defensive. Flickering Ward.
Flickering Ward. This is a card that I thought about playing around with, and I haven't done it yet, I believe, because it like comes back to you. Yeah, you can return to your hand.
Yeah, you can keep bouncing it. Gives protection of the color of your choice, and you can return it to your hand for a white.
So also defensive. Also a card that I've thought about putting in my Rootwater Matriarch deck, because I can use it to enchant their creature, and then I can steal it with the Rootwater Matriarch. If they bring out a better creature that I want instead, I can return Flickering Ward to my hand, and then I can enchant their better creature, and then steal that son of a bitch.
The problem I have here with this is that we already have a couple clerics that do something like this. So it's kind of like, now do I need to put the bouncing? It is nice. It keeps, you never have to worry about it like losing it. But there's a couple clerics that are already doing this, so it's like, do I really want to like double down on the protection from colors?
I wouldn't waste space in a cleric deck with this.
Yeah. Okay.
In a Rootwater Matriarch deck, though. Now we're cooking with gas.
Now we're cooking. Okay, Shared Triumph. This is a little more what we're looking for, I think.
So Flickering Ward, have you seen it in some of the cleric decks you looked at? Is that why it's here?
I did, and I'm kind of blanking on why I put it in this list. Also, I think I saw it in comments for one of the other cards, so it was like,
it might be in a deck that we look at later. It might be. Could also be just a sideboard card that they put in.
So Shared Triumph doesn't say anything about cleric specifically, but you get to choose creature type, and creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1. So
good Anthem effect, yeah.
Yeah.
I like this. Perfect for a clan style deck.
Mm-hmm.
It is in my current Slivers build, because my current Slivers build is not optimized, but it is a Slivers build where all I wanted to do is try to make the biggest, baddest slivers possible. I don't care about what my opponent's doing. It's a very linear deck. All I'm doing is playing cards on curve and trying to pump things.
Yeah. Well, I like this. You have the sliver with first strike, and the one sliver that gives +0/+2, I think, and they're both white, +0/+1 or +0/+2, both white. So you can get early low casting cost slivers down with this in like a kind of like white heavy sliver deck. Might be nice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, pretty straightforward. That'll help your white clerics be a little more aggressive.
Good in any clan deck. Good for a cleric clan deck.
Okay, so that was Shared Triumph. Next white spell. I'm really excited about this one. This might be the card I'm most excited about today.
Oh shit.
I just found out about it. Other people probably know about it already.
I do.
Do you? Dang it, Steve.
It's a pitch spell, right?
Yes, this is Abolish. It's like a pitch disenchant.
Yes.
1 colorless, 1 white, 2 white, 1 colorless. Let's say it that way. You may discard a plains from your hand instead of paying Abolish's mana cost, destroy target artifact or enchantment. So it's a 3 mana disenchant that you can ditch a plains from your hand to pay it for free. I like this. It seems like a great early game combo stopper to me.
I think so too. That's exactly what I was going to say. There's a lot.
I immediately thought of like Dreadnought or something.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
If they get something down really nasty, artifact or enchantment wise early on, artifact creature.
Dreadnought and son of a bitches, you Oath of Druids, son of a bitches.
Yeah, and you can just, drop your plains. So obviously going to be better in a straight white deck, so you have lots of plains, or at least white heavy so that you have some basic plains in your hand.
Yeah. I bought 4 of these and we haven't talked about the prophecy pitch spells yet, but have we?
I don't think so.
We at least saw foil, because we found foil in other decks we've talked about. And then I was like, oh, there's a pitch spell cycle and prophecy. And I saw this and I bought 4 of them because they were cheap. And I was like, oh, these definitely they come in handy.
Prophecy, like, I don't know. I was just gonna say, like, this set, I feel like
it's dog shit.
Yeah.
Is that what you were gonna say?
Diplomatic way, yeah. Like, we don't pay attention to it because it's considered to be pretty low value, low power. But once in a while, I see a card that I didn't know about from it. I'm like, oh, that's actually not bad.
Yeah. Okay. There's very few though. Maybe I haven't looked. Maybe I need to look again. Because I've gotten back. I'm getting better at Magic now as we're building more and thinking more. And
yeah,
I know when we first got back in, I heard about Prophecy being an unloved set, and I wanted to check it out, see how bad it really was, or to see if it was really even bad, I should say that. And I remember just going through the cards and just reading and thinking, this actually is terrible. This is like this generation's Homelands. But there are a few cards in it. The most expensive card in the set is a common. It's the damn Ristic Study that just everybody puts into every single commander deck they build just because.
Yeah.
Ban it. Ban that card.
But yeah, so Abolish, I thought that was pretty cool.
No, I really good. And I love having a disenchant effect with an alternate casting cost.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many combos that you're going to be able to stop with this. Like, they're going to involve an enchantment or an artifact a lot of the time.
I think so too.
So that's pretty cool. Another similar spell, Reverent Mantra. This is a Rebecca Guai art card, so I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Uh-oh.
Guess what happened, Alex? I spelled it wrong.
Looks like you spelled it right.
No, I did now.
Oh. Okay.
Reverent Mantra.
1 white, 3 colorless instant. You may remove a white card in your hand from the game instead of paying the mana cost. All creatures gain protection from the color of your choice until end of turn.
We've talked about this because we definitely did talk about the Mercadian Mass pitch cycle.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I don't remember.
I think we did an episode on the Mercadian Mass pitch cycle.
I think I remember that, but I don't remember this card. We were probably just like, it's,
It wasn't our favorite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I'm now trying to think. Because that's, pro. First of all, you're going to be in white. In this case, if you're building a cleric deck, you're going to be in clerics. We said this in reference to another card already. You're going to have a lot of clerics already with protection or clerics that can give other clerics protection.
Yeah.
In addition to that, this only does it for 1 turn, and you have to give up another card just to have this effect for just 1 turn. I guess the one bonus is that it can have a blanket effect. So it can do it to all your creatures. You might be able to save 1 or 2 creatures that didn't have the protection.
And the surprise factor. I mean, it's obviously as a combat trick, you can do it without, while you're tapped out. So that's nice.
While you're tapped out, you can use it for one final push to push through damage past blockers.
So, for me, like maybe I'd put 1 in, like as like a game-winning combat trick or something. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not blown away.
What are the other Mercadian Mask pitch spells? Why am I blanking?
I can't remember.
Unmask is definitely in Mercadian Mask, correct? Yes, it is.
Okay, Unmask. I remember this now.
You may remove a black card in your hand from the game instead of paying Unmask's mana cost. That's all I remember. That's enough for now.
Yeah, well, so those were a few relevant spells that I saw. I saw a lot of people running Armageddon, Aura of Silence, which is enchantment and artifact removal again. Also Core Haven. People threw Core Havens in, and I can see that being useful. Obviously not just for a cleric deck, but in a cleric deck it would be good.
Yeah.
Look that up again. 1 white, 1 colorless, and tap. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt by target attacking creature this turn. So just doubling down on that sort of like, having all of your defensive abilities to protect things and negate damage and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What are you looking for? Oh,
the other pitch spells. Misdirection, of course. How did I forget that one?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mercadian Mask had a good this is why we kind of poo-pooed Reverent Mantra. Because it was in another pretty good pitch cycle. Misdirection and Unmask are both very strong. I don't remember what the red or green ones were. I'm going to operate under the assumption that the red one sucked and the green one was so-so. And the black and blue ones were the most powerful. I cannot remember what the green one was. Let's go on a small tangent. You're going to watch me scroll through my game. Well, red comes first, so maybe we'll see the red one. I think once I see the art, it'll
Cave
pop
in.
out to me. What'd you say?
Cave in. It was cave in.
Cave in?
Cave in.
Yes. Yes. You may remove a red card in your hand from the game instead of paying Cave in's mana cost. Cave in deals 2 damage to each creature and our player. It's a pyroclasm. The green one's probably going to give things +2/+2 or some shit.
Collective unconscious?
No, that's draw a card for each creature you control. That's a card that I had in my commander deck, but then I found that there were many times. Well, it's hard. When I'm goldfishing it, I'm like, oh, I have a bunch of tokens out. So then I draw like 17 cards and I can't play most of them when I have to throw them in my graveyard. And I didn't like that. But in real gameplay, I'm going to be facing removal. So maybe it'd actually be better in real gameplay than it is when I'm goldfishing.
There's a lot of green cards in here.
Yeah. It's not saber ants. This is
the end of the alphabet.
This is fascinating for the viewers. But you know what, people? Today is a day where I'm getting sidetracked by tangents. I'm still thinking about what dish that was that I potentially had at Lola Michael Symon's restaurant in Columbus like 12, 15, 20 years ago. I just cannot remember. Anyways,
I didn't
let's
see a
move
green
on.
pitch spell.
I didn't either.
I guess. I mean, there is land grant. I don't know if that counts because
I know, I thought that too, but that's definitely not a pitch spell. So I'm like, what am I missing? Anyways, what were we going to do now? So we went through the white creature clerics. You went through some spells, enchantments, instant sorceries that you sometimes saw run in pre-modern or old frame cleric decks. Now you had a few cleric decks. Yeah, you had a few cleric decks that caught your eye. Some cleric decks you wanted to discuss. So what's the first one? What is the first one, Alex? Do you know?
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah. What's the first one?
First one.
Was it Premodern Clerics deck by Kowalski?
I wonder, is that supposed to be curious? Like double L-Y sound?
Oh yeah, I don't know. Was this a Spanish?
I think this is from some of those Spanish tournaments.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what this was. I was like
tournaments, maybe.
I was like, Gorillas. Is this going to be a white-green cleric gorilla deck?
I think it was Portuguese for clerics or something.
It was not. Oh, yeah, maybe. Let me Google that word.
I tried to Google curious, and nothing. There was like a real life location place or something, and nothing else came up.
Curia V. Mikru is the leader of the Temple Knights and bravest warrior in the military.
Oh,
according to Final Fantasy. It was a Final Fantasy character.
Oh, okay. I have seen that word in like Final Fantasy games before.
Is it Portuguese? Portuguese? I don't know. We'll never know unless maybe
I'll try
Kowalski.
to find it for an update for next turn. I'll do.
Kowalski sounds Polish. Maybe Kowalski
I know.
will tune into this episode and he'll let us know what that word means, how to pronounce it, what it's a reference to. It's definitely not a cleric gorilla deck, which was my initial thought.
No.
But this is a deck you found, a pre-modern legal deck called Koreas by Kowalski. It is a mono white cleric deck with a lot of the creatures
by the book. Like as far as what we just talked about, it has like pretty much just all those popular cleric creatures. 4 master apothecaries, by the way.
It's loaded up on creatures, 32 creatures. Yeah, and it's just like 4 of everything that's in the list of pre-modern legal clerics. 4 master apothecaries. The one that you and I did not like it. Things could get
Yeah.
very difficult actually. Must with Master Apothecaries on the board plus
Yeah.
Shaman and Core on the board. Redirecting damage, preventing damage. What is the win con here? This brings me back to the major issue I had with attempting to build a white cleric focused deck with the things we've seen so far. My problem was, okay, well, how are you going to kill your opponent? Are you going to very slowly ping them with 1/1s?
I think you're overwhelming them with 1/1s.
White weenie. It's an
They get the
old school
boost
white
from
weenie
the
strategy.
I mean, they get the boost from the enchantment a little bit, there's that. I think, you get all these clerics out, they get boosted from the spiritualist. If they get targeted, you do the redirecting damage. So now every time they're attacking you or you're attacking them, you're saving your creatures but killing theirs.
Yes.
Right? And then eventually you wear them down with your horde of clerics that can't be killed because you keep protecting them all.
I could very much be underestimating the difficulty of dealing with the Master Apothecary and Shaman and Core when you have 32 creatures in your deck that you could be playing. And the degree
And
to
the
which
removal spells are going to cost 1 more to cast.
Yeah, Glow Rider.
Mm-hmm.
So many of your creatures though are like one toughness. Well, I guess if you got 4 Daru Spiritualists out, so that'll buff them. So you have a little bit more leeway with directing damage via Shaman and Core to different people. They can each of the people you have out, if you have a Daru Spiritualist out, can eat 2 damage.
Plus, you can
before
redirect the
sent to
damage
graveyard.
and give them protection with the Mother of Runes.
Yes, of course. You could direct it all to one. You could direct it all to the Mother of Runes, and she could just sop it all up. And you just hide behind that. You hide behind your mom all game, and you just each turn do 2 damage with the Sultari Priest. 2 damage.
It'll build up though. I mean, eventually you'll be doing, you'll be getting through with 4 or 5 creatures eventually, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Once you get rid of a few of theirs
And if you have your True Believer out, you don't have to worry about damage from spells or abilities, and you have your army of blockers to deal with their creatures. So maybe it could be much better than I'm realizing.
Oh, plus you have the Starlit Sanct. Well, he doesn't have black mana, does he?
No, so you can't use it for the damage effect.
Yeah.
Prevent all combat damage to be dealt by target attacking creature this turn. Core Haven. Interesting to go with the Secluded Step. But again, maybe this is just him putting in a cycling card for the reasons that we've talked about, maybe putting cycling cards into decks that we haven't explored yet, just for the card draw.
Yeah, maybe. And playing white, like mono white with low casting cost creatures late in the game, you probably have plenty of mana and you draw more land, more lands you want to be able to cycle them, maybe.
That's what I'm thinking. Interesting. Okay, so this is going to be a very combat focused deck.
Seems like a couple removal spells.
Creature focused deck. The idea being you can handle all their creatures with your mom and redirection of damage to the mom. And then you deal with spells and abilities by hiding behind the True Believer. And the plan must be to kill with the shadow creatures. Is that the plan? Primarily.
Yeah, or just all the creatures, I think. It's like...
Yeah, or all the creatures, yeah.
If you're getting attacked, and you're... if you can give all your creatures protection from a color, if they're attacking you, you're going to kill off their creatures probably. You know what I mean? Then they won't have any left, and then you're going to have 6 creatures down.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm underestimating the horde of weenies.
Oh, well, so, you know, it's just one deck. It's just a deck from online. So
That's
knows?
Gorillas by Kowalski.
Yeah. Second one go to.
I do want to give it a spin though. I want to give it a spin.
Okay. I'll do the other one that was with it.
BW Gorillas deck by Kowalski.
Yeah.
Is this a black-white
This is
deck?
no, see, this one, unless I mixed it up, this is straight white and it just has black for Engineered Plague.
You know what? You know what, Alex? I kind of like the look of this deck. This reminds me of, it was a pre-modern tournament. It might have been the European National Championships this year, pre-modern National Championships. Can't remember exactly, but I think that was it. Where somebody played a red, white, blue deck. And their creatures were pretty much white. I remember they ran Four Savannah Lions. But I believe it was a 5-color deck. And they ran Mox Diamonds and a mana base that allowed them to, you know, reliably play other colors. But the other colors were mostly there for enchantments. And they added to the deck like the best enchantments that they could think of. And each of the enchantments, I think, just had one colored mana. So I remember Engineered Plague being in there, Rancor being in there. I can't remember what else was in there, but it was. I remember it being primarily a primarily white deck, but 5-colored to sprinkle in utility enchantments from different colors. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting here. It's a white weenie deck with all the typical white weenie stuff. Low casting cost, 1/1 or 2/1 white creatures with interesting special abilities. A Geddon, because that's what white weenie do sometimes. So you can put out some fast creatures, a Geddon. Curse Scroll, which is something you would see in white weenie decks to push out some extra damage. I like that in here, actually. And then I
like the Rancor.
Useful edition. Enchantments. Yeah, I love the Rancor edition.
And Engineered Plague is fine. Like it, you know, it doesn't have to, like, what am I trying to say? It doesn't matter that this is a cleric deck, just that that you have creatures of all one type that you can avoid using the Engineered Plague on. You know, you can use it just on their goblins or whatever.
Goblins or zombies. And when I look at white weenie decks in pre-modern, I think, oh, how do they compare to other clans?
Yeah.
Like goblins and stuff, and it's usually subpar. But if you can throw an Engineered Plague in, maybe even more than one Engineered Plague. In this case, it's just one Engineered Plague.
Yeah, so I like this. I like having the scroll rat or the curse scroll for some, you know, extra. Make sure you can like get through to the back.
And the deck I was mentioning too, also I think might have run 4, maybe. I can't remember how many exactly. I think it might have run 4, but it definitely ran Enlightened Tutors.
Okay. Yep.
Which you can then use to go fetch your utility enchantments. And I think actually that deck, in addition to running an Engineered Plague or Rancor, also ran a Seal of Cleansing. So this is the same kind of idea, and I like that.
Well, yeah, you may as well if you're if you're using the tutor, if you're using Enlightened Tutor, Seal of Cleansing is a great pick, so that you can tutor for your removal when you need it.
Definitely.
Just another reason why I like Seal of Cleansing. I'm kind of going to that all the time now, I think.
You got your City of Brass. He put in a couple fetch. He put in some fetch lands, 4, not a couple, 4. Put in a couple Gemstone Mines. Core Haven, just because it's fucking sick.
And so now he can use the Starlit Sanctum because he has black mana. So again, with the Cursed Scroll and the Starlit Sanctum, you can like reach through to finish him off.
Yeah.
So this deck seems to be like a little more, you know, like obvious win conditions or obvious like ways to finish them.
And to my eyes, a little bit more well-rounded. I'm liking it a lot. I'm liking this utility enchantment package in a primarily white shell. I'm liking the addition of the Curse Scroll, which the Enlightened Tutor can also get.
Oh yeah, yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Kowalski did. Kowalski thought about it. That's why I put it in. Not a bad idea at all. Okay.
All right.
I'm digging that one. Where's the Savannah Lions? They're not clerics, unfortunately. Is there a dumb blue spell I could play out to change my lions to clerics?
There sure is, Steve. There sure is.
Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay.
You could have like little cute cats with Pope hats.
Yeah. I was probably going to Photoshop a Pope hat on you for this thumbnail, by the way.
Oh, sweet.
If I have time. We'll see.
Yeah. Next deck. I don't know where you put them in there.
What was the name of the next one? I'll find it. Once I know the name, I'll find it. We had the 2 by Kowalski.
This is just called Clerics by Juan Ramon Garcia.
Juan Ramon Garcia playing clerics. It's a
There you
mono
go.
white deck. It's pre-modern legal.
This one seems more defensive, more life gainy than
What
the
do we got
last
here?
one.
Mono white, we got 27 creatures. We got 2 sorceries, the Armageddon. We got your instants. I haven't been highlighting the instants and stuff from the other decks.
Yeah,
But
but
Swords
Swords of Plowshares.
of Plowshares and Abolish, which we've seen in the other ones.
This is Flickering Ward.
Enchantments, Aura of Silence, which we saw at least in the other sideboards. You did mention that.
It's in almost all the sideboards or main decks of these.
Main board, Shared Triumph, which was main board for the others. And then, yes, the addition of Flickering Ward, which is interesting. Not an enchantment that either you and I think would play in.
I have to think about it. The fact that you can
Yeah.
bounce it really is good. Like it's like a Rancor, it just keeps coming back. You can't get rid of it.
Well,
But
they can't. I mean,
he only has 2 Mother of Runes in here.
yeah.
So maybe that's why we're seeing the Flickering Ward.
And it is really great on the True Believer.
Now that card with the lightning flash face guy, I didn't talk about him, but I did see that.
Beacon of Destiny is a cleric. We didn't mention him. He is a cleric. 1 colorless, 1 white, 1/3. Tap. The next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, it is instead dealt to Beacon of Destiny.
See, I like the True Believer more than that.
Yeah. And he goes with 3 True Believers and 3 of these. I mean, Beacon of Destiny, you're just playing him to die. You're just putting him out there to die.
Well, you can Mother of Runes him.
That's true. Why do I keep
Destiny, Mother of Runes?
You could also flickering ward.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe that's why, since he's using the beacon dude, he's using the flickering ward too.
I don't know this one either. You didn't mention it, but we didn't pull it up. No Man's Encore. I think you said.
I almost mentioned that when we were talking about Shaman, because there are several of the Encore creatures that all do this redirection of damage.
And this is a soldier, but it hasn't been an errata to cleric.
Oh, good question.
Summon soldiers.
Probably a soldier cleric.
That's true. 1 white, 1/1. 0 mana, redirect 1 damage from Nomad's Encore to a creature you control. So again, he's heavy on the redirection here, which probably
he's just a soldier creature, core nomad soldier.
Oh my god, what the hell? That's crazy.
But it's the simplest and cheapest of these Encore damage redirectors. It's just a 1-drop.
Just a 1-drop.
And for 0, I mean, it can keep doing that, so that's pretty good.
Okay, I see this deck. It reminds me more of the first one that we saw.
Yeah, it's more defensive. It's more like the first one.
Creature focused, all about redirecting damage to and fro, but ultimately hoping it ends up on a creature that you can give protection from whatever color that damage is coming from.
Yeah.
And then eventually you get through with your Soltori Priest, because it has shadow, or you just go wide.
Yep.
Doesn't get me as excited as the second deck we saw.
Yeah, I agree.
Here he also plays the frolicking thespians.
Oh,
Story circle. Next time a story of your choice of the chosen color would deal damage to you this turn. Prevent that damage. Frolicking thespians.
this is when we need the naked gun clip.
Yeah. We did this last time, and I said, remind me again what that scene was, and then you told me Leslie Nielsen shot somebody, right?
He shot the Shakespeare performers in the park doing Caesar because they were stabbing each other. So he killed them.
Solitary Monk is also in the sideboard, just another shadow creature, pro black shadow. So maybe if you're playing a black deck instead of a red deck, the Solitary Priest comes out, the Solitary Monk goes in.
Yep.
That's what I would do.
All right, let's check
What's
out
this
last
guy
deck.
again? I want to remind myself what this guy is again too. A second shadow creature, just a 2/2 shadow, straight up 2/2 shadow. No, if Solitary Visionary damages any player, destroy target enchantment that player. Okay, so you can bring this fella, whatever the hell he is. What is this?
Mutant Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, you can bring this fella in if you're playing against an enchantment heavy deck.
Yep.
And if they don't clear him off the board, he's just going to be blowing all your enchantments away. This is very bizarre.
It is weird. That's weird art.
Okay. So far, my favorite is BW.
Yeah, I think so too. It seems a little more aggressive and fun.
BBW Kirilla's deck by Kowalski. That was Juan Ramon Garcia playing clerics. Now we're going to go to Josu Marquez playing clerics, right?
Yep.
Another mono white deck. 26 creatures, 1 sorcery, which is a Geddon, 7 instants. You got your swords, you got your abolish. He went with 1 reverent mantra.
So he's using several of the pitch spells.
Enchantments, we see Shared Triumph, but we also see Divine Sacrament, which is all white creatures get +1/+1.
That's one of the reasons that's one of the reasons I pulled this deck up, because I thought Divine Sacrament was worth looking at.
White creatures get an additional +1/+1 as long as 7 or more cards are in your graveyard. Interesting.
Yeah.
That would actually work well in the deck that had cycling lands.
Mm-hmm.
Getting more things in your graveyard.
Oh yeah, you can put some of those cycling lands in there. That'd be good. It works pretty well with was that Parallax Tide? Is that what that's called? You made it all small. I can't read the cards anymore.
Parallax Wave.
Yeah.
2 colorless, 2 white enchantment, fading 5. Remove a fade counter from Parallax Wave or to remove target creature from the game. When Parallax Wave leaves play, each player returns to play all cards he or she owns removed from the game with Parallax Wave. What does this work well with?
It's temporary exiling just to help you, but it's designed to eventually end up in the graveyard, in which case it will help trigger your threshold.
Oh, you mean the Parallax Wave itself will eventually.
Parallax Wave itself is on a ticker,
on
so
a clock,
it's gonna go to the graveyard.
Yeah. This is a good way. I don't know what Parallax Wave is doing in this deck, what its main purpose is. But I mean, you put it out and you move fade counters, you just eliminate blockers that help you get through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or creatures that are a threat to you, or like things that you don't like that they have, creatures that are dangerous right now, you want to keep them out of play.
But then you're just buying yourself potentially a few turns, hoping you pull your sword to plowshares or whatever.
Yes.
I wonder what the primary idea behind putting if somebody
sorry, go ahead.
Somebody puts this in the deck, what's their primary hope for it? What is the primary reason for putting it in the deck? I would think, okay, this could be my finisher. Similar to a Reverent Mantra, where you pitch a white card and give a big creature you want to push through protection from whatever color their blockers are to get it through Parallax Wave. Do you play it to
You
remove
can
their
remove 5 creatures from the game for
from the
one
game
turn.
and then just push through for lethal. I don't know if that's what the thought is, but that's what comes to my simple head. I also like the doubtless one here. Finally, we got something that can be over 2 power.
Yeah.
I don't mind seeing that finally show up in a cleric deck. So this is kind of like an almost white weenie strategy.
People use Parallax Wave, I think, with like Opalescence a lot. I had to just look that up right now because I know I've seen it in other decks where you're screwing around with enchantment things. Opalescence turns enchantments into creatures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not gotten into those decks yet. I know they
So, yeah.
exist. I know people do things with Parallax Wave and another Parallax. Haven't gotten into them yet. I need to do lots of exploring.
Oh, also you could do, remember how we were talking about Wall of Blossoms? You could use it. They mentioned Wall of Omens, which I think is a modern card, yeah. But it does something similar. So with Parallax Wave, you could be sending creatures with enter the battlefield effects out and then having them come back in again.
Okay.
If that works, I think that works.
Doesn't really help them in this particular deck.
No, not in this. I'm just talking about it off topic a little bit.
This is another pretty straightforward mono white cleric deck along the lines of the white weenie strategy, but maybe a little beefier because you got the doubtless one. Maybe a little bit beefier because you got your divine sacrament in addition to the 3 shared triumphs.
Yeah, I kind of like the divine sacrament.
It's white. What is this then? White weenie with a side of beef? Maybe. The doubtless one being the side of beef. I think that's what this is.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Steve, I think that's what I have on white clerics for us today.
Okay, that's it for Premodern Clerics Part 1.
It'll get spicier next week, I think. I think a lot of the like I said, a lot of the decks are white-black. We start to see the black clerics getting mixed in. It's a little more interesting.
More options for more interesting gameplay options. Your white gameplay options, cleric-wise, seem to be primarily follow a standard white weenie strategy, plus make it a little more tricky, potentially a lot more tricky, by moving damage all around during combat. Not just during combat, actually, to save your creatures from direct damage. You have lots of trickery available to you.
Yeah.
And a little bit of shadow thrown in for fun. And a whole lot of protection. White weenie, protection, shadow, damage redirection.
That sums it up.
Yeah. I had something else I was going to talk about real quick, but I think we save it for a follow-up to next episode. We're just going to feature just mention very briefly some old frame cards that have been errated to clerics that you guys might not know about. If you wanted to play an old frame cleric deck, you could put these things in. Not going to talk about it right now. Talk about it next episode instead.
We have a December news to mention. We have to get to that before we run out of time. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Before we head out, we're going to go to segment 2. Very brief. I just wanted to mention something. Alex, you and I have talked about, potentially in the future, hitting up different conventions, maybe finding some interesting tournaments to go to. We went to our first ever Magic the Gathering convention earlier this year when it was in Columbus. Was it Star City Games convention in Columbus? I believe we went to. Can't even remember. It was SCG Con Columbus.
SCG Con, yeah.
I found something else that looked particularly interesting to me. It's happening next week in December. It happens every year, at least. I mean, I don't know how many years they've been doing this, but it hasn't happened. I mean, it happened before. This isn't the first one. Eternal Weekend. That's what I'm trying to get to. Eternal Weekend, North America. This is a big weekend celebrating Eternal formats in Magic the Gathering. Just the kind of things you and I really love. Eternal formats. It is December 7th through 10th. It's in Pittsburgh, PA, which is also particularly exciting because We could drive there. That's not that far from us. It's not in Las Vegas. It's not in Los Angeles. It's not in Atlanta. It's fairly close by. Eternal Weekend, North America. What happens at Eternal Weekend? At Eternal Weekend, you can play in the premier yearly competition of Magic's Eternal formats and play for this year's unique artwork trophies and event-exclusive top 8 promotional cards. It's a weekend all about vintage, legacy, and much more. See this fella over here? Look how excited he is. He's lifting up his big card. If you win the major tournaments, you get one of these giant cards.
I want a big card.
It's a classic card in the from the history of Magic the Gathering. They frame it and they commission unique art for it, I think. And then it tells you that you're the North American Vintage or Legacy champion for that year. See this fella right here? He was the 2022 North America Vintage Championship or Vintage Champion. Alex, we follow this guy on Twitter. Guess where he's from? I can't remember his name. I think his Twitter account says Raja, in quotes, Phyrexian Furnace. I can't remember what his last name is. Guess where he's from, Alex?
Phyrexia?
Youngstown, Ohio.
Oh, Youngstown.
The current reigning 2022 North American Vintage Champion is from Youngstown, Ohio.
Right.
Alex, your assignment is to befriend this fella because he lives right down the road from you somewhere. He's very close. Befriend this fella, become best friends with him, start a magic night with him. And we will travel to Eternal Weekend together next year.
Okay.
That's your assignment. Look, there are major movers, major big shots in the world of Magic the Gathering in Youngstown, Ohio. We didn't even know that. Why else am I bringing
I like
this
that
up?
Black Lotus art. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. This is what you can win this year, I guess. Vintage champion gets a Black Lotus. Legacy champion gets a lightning bolt. Giant, framed, perfect for your den or for your bedroom in your parents' house. If you're like us and you live in your parents' bedroom.
Great.
Not
for
your parents'
striking
bedroom.
someone during a
bedroom in
wrestling
your parents'
match.
What did you say?
Is it great for striking someone during a wrestling match?
Oh, yeah, that's true. But why did I bring this up? One, because it's in Pittsburgh, close to us. Exciting. Two, because this is a giant event in the world of Eternal formats, primarily Vintage and Legacy. But you know what? You and I don't play Vintage and Legacy. I mean, those are two interesting formats, but we don't really have collections at the moment that would allow us to build a competitive,
at least not
vintage or legacy deck. I mean, we can't even afford these goddamn dual lands we used to pay $5 for. Those days are long gone. There's another person I follow on Twitter recently. He made some tweet. He's like, I don't remember exactly what it says, what he said, but something along the lines of, the reason I don't like talking to old guys who play Magic is because they will never shut up about how cheap they used to be able to buy all these cards for. And I felt like
guilty.
I felt like I was being directly called out, even though I wasn't, because this person doesn't even know who I am. But you know what? Listen, kid. Let me tell you something. 20 years from now, you're going to be doing like the same goddamn thing. You're going to forget that you ever even tweeted that. You're going to be doing the same goddamn thing. It just happens. What was I saying? Oh, we don't have like vintage or legacy collections, but we are building pre-modern collections. And you know what? We don't actually have a lot of the cards that are in the most competitive, or at least some of the most competitive pre-modern decks, like Gaia's Cradle, for instance, that was shown here, Mox Diamonds. You do need those if you want to build some of the most competitive pre-modern decks. But you know, there are other pre-modern decks that do take down tournaments that are fairly cheap to build, like Goblins stuff. I put together a Goblins deck. We can put together Goblins decks. We could potentially go to Eternal Weekend and smash some people in pre-modern events. If there were pre-modern events, Alex, guess what? I looked at these schedules, and in addition to Vintage and Legacy, There's fucking Premodern at Eternal Weekend as well.
Wait.
They have different challenge events. Don't ask me I mean, these aren't the main tournaments, the main events, but each day they do have different challenges, vintage challenge, legacy challenge. You could enter for small fees, win different prizes, and they're working Premodern into this in addition to some draft. So it's mostly vintage, legacy, some fun draft, but I think every day had at least one Premodern event. And I do think I'm liking this. I'm getting excited by this. I'm seeing some old school events that are starting to incorporate Premodern. I think a lot of these Eternal events that usually focused on old school 93, 94, vintage, legacy, they're starting to incorporate Premodern. And that's allowing, I think, different people who don't necessarily have these collections that contain, all the power and stuff to enter these tournaments, to enjoy these events. And that's getting me excited. And that's another thing that made me excited about Eternal Weekend. Because, it's one thing to be able to go there and watch other people play, to meet up with other Magic players, to see all the vendors, to see the artists. There's going to be a lot of artists here. It's a little bit more exciting if you could actually enter some of the competitions with a deck that you're actually able to build that you don't need Power 9 for. So that's pretty sweet. Just wanted to mention that coming up December 7th to 10th. If you're in the area, go. Tell them Old Man Magic brought you.
They'll say, who?
Tell them you never heard about Eternal Weekend until you were one of the 7 people who watched the episode of the Old Man Magic podcast last week. And you decided to book your ticket. Anywho, Alex, that's all I got. That's all I got for this episode. You gave us a lot of Premodern Clerics.
Yeah, I hope it wasn't an overwhelming dump of clerics.
I don't think so. We've definitely spewed out more creature cards in a single episode than
Probably
we
true.
did today.
I didn't want to just throw all of them in, but I also didn't want to leave out important ones. It's tough.
Yeah, you can't cover them all, Alex. Did your best. It was excellent. It was an excellent overview of white Premodern Clerics. We have a very solid grasp. I think if somebody watches this episode, they have a very solid grasp of the things that white clerics in the Premodern format generally do.
Yeah. And next week we'll find out about some black and multicolored clerics as well.
Next week it's going to get spicier. Next week comes the gold. I love gold, Alex. If there's a gold, you're going to talk about at least one.
There's
gold
a couple
one,
golds.
Okay,
not many, but there's a couple.
There's at least one. Okay, we're going to head out, Alex. Before we head out, do you have any words of wisdom for the viewers?
No, Steve.
No words of wisdom. You used all your words today on clerics. No words left for wisdom.
I've just saved words for next week.
So if that's it, I'll say thanks for listening, everybody. If you made this far and you haven't already subscribed, if you made this far and you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. If you made it this far and you're already subscribed to the podcast, hit that like button. If you made it this far and you're already subscribed to the podcast and you already hit the like button, hit that notification bell. If you made it this far in the podcast and you're already subscribed and you already hit that like button and you already hit that notification bell, leave us a comment. We love all comments. I personally respond to every single comment. Sometimes I give it a like. Sometimes I give it a heart. Alex said, really, he can't believe that. Alex has never responded to
No, I said he does. I said he does.
Oh, okay. Alex has never responded to any comment. But that's all I got for today. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.